If you've ever stood in the kitchen staring at a sleek, expensive-looking coffee machine and thought, "Is this really worth the cash?" You're not alone. The fear of splurging on a gadget that ends up gathering dust or worse, making subpar espresso that tastes like burnt water is real. You want something that'll actually serve you a decent cup every morning without turning your countertop into a mini lab. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's dig into whether the Gen SDH fully automatic coffee and espresso machine lives up to the hype, and if it fits into the kind of coffee routine you have. First off, the biggest question most people have is whether an all-in-one machine can truly replace a separate grinder and a traditional espresso maker. The Gen SDH claims to handle both beans and pre-ground powder, which sounds convenient, but there's a practical side to that promise. In my research, I came across a lot of "I like the convenience" chatter in the forums, but also a quiet undercurrent of people who already have a dedicated grinder and wonder if the built-in one will ever match the consistency of a standalone burr grinder. The truth is, the internal grinder does a respectable job for everyday brewing. It can pulverize beans enough to produce a smooth drip coffee and even a decent latte foam. However, if you are a latte art enthusiast who demands micron-level precision, you'll notice a slight difference in extraction when you switch to the built-in grinder versus a high-end external one. What really matters is how the machine behaves on a typical weekday. Imagine you're a busy professional who wants a cappuccino before the commute. With the Gen SDH, you load the bean hopper, press a single button, and the machine grinds, tamps, extracts, and froths all in under a minute. The 15 bar pressure, while not a new number in the espresso world, actually translates into a respectable crema on most beans, giving you that caffeine without needing to master a manual tamp. For a family of 3 that takes turns making coffee, the dual-purpose option bean or powder means the older kids can just dump instant coffee powder for a quick brew, while the adults enjoy fresh beans. That flexibility is one of its practical strengths. Now, who should walk away from this machine? If you're someone who drinks 1 cup a day, prefers a simple drip brew, and isn't interested in milk-based drinks, the Gen SDH might be overkill. Its built-in milk frother adds complexity and maintenance you'll never use, and the extra cost doesn't pay off. Likewise, if you already own a top-tier espresso setup with a dedicated grinder and a separate steam wand, you'll probably find the Gen SDH redundant. The machine shines for households where coffee is a shared ritual, and where the convenience of having beans, powder, and a frother in one footprint matters more than squeezing out the ultimate espresso shot. A few practical weaknesses popped up during my deep dive. The first is cleaning. The machine's Humanized design tries to make user interaction intuitive. Buttons are clearly labeled, the water reservoir slides out, and the drip tray is easy to lift. Still, the integrated grinder and frother mean you have more nooks to scrub. Users reported that the grinder's burrs need weekly cleaning to avoid oil buildup, especially if you use oily beans. The frother, while capable of a decent foam, needs descaling just as often as the boiler itself. If you're not prepared for a weekly routine of taking apart the grinder chamber and rinsing the milk tube, you might find the maintenance a hassle. Another hidden trade-off is the machine's size. It's marketed as a countertop unit, but the footprint is larger than a standard drip coffee maker because of the built-in grinder and the separate milk chamber. If you have a cramped kitchen, you'll need to consider whether that extra inch of depth fits under your cabinets. Also, the water reservoir holds about 1.5 liters, which is enough for a few cups but not for a large gathering. In a weekend brunch scenario, you'll be refilling the tank more often than you'd like. On the upside, the manual cappuccino mode is surprisingly user-friendly. You can choose the milk amount and the strength of the espresso, and the machine adjusts the pressure accordingly. One reviewer I found mentioned that they liked being able to dial in a stronger shot for a mocha, then add cocoa powder on top. That level of control, without needing a separate steam wand, is a genuine time-saver. The system also remembers your last settings, so if you consistently make a medium-strength latte, the next brew will start with that baseline, reducing the guesswork. If you're budgeting, the price point sits in the mid-range for fully automatic machines. You're not paying for a professional-grade piston pump or a high-end ceramic grinder, but you're also not shelling out for a cheap pod-only system. The value comes from the all-in-one convenience. you buy beans, load them, and get espresso, cappuccino, or plain coffee with a few taps. For people who love the ritual of grinding fresh beans but don't want to manage separate devices, that